Hello, it's Mark. Just before this episode starts, I wanted to let you know that this was recorded quite a few months ago, just before COVID really became a thing. So its release got put on hold whilst I went off and chatted to lots of operators about how they were coping with the pandemic. But the original point of this podcast series was very much to learn the whole story around hospitality. Not just as operators, but visiting the farmers and the humans along the food chain, learning about where our food and drink comes from. Long-time listeners will have heard chats with beekeepers or egg growers or organic farmers or distillers or brewers, but of late conversations have been very much operations focused. But with so much of the sector nervous now, but at least open, I thought it was a good time to get back to a little learning thrown into the mix. So in today's show, we are off to learn about bacon. And my personal experience in kitchens is that food provenance gets increasingly more important, but that bacon is all too often neglected and treated as a bit of a commodity. So I wanted to learn more about how it's made, animal welfare, and the price/quality sweet spot. So back to the pre-recorded episode for you, but I'll be back next Monday and I have a very exciting trip planned this week to the kitchen garden at Le Manoir, so perhaps I'll have some interesting insights from them ready by then. Cheers. Welcome to the podcast where together, every Monday, we explore hospitality in its very broadest sense. From culture and cooking, cocktails and coffee, nutrition and farming, politics and animal welfare, organic and sustainability, family and business, entrepreneurship, and much, much more. Come and learn with me, Mark Cribb, about where our food and our drink comes from, and the businesses and, more importantly, the human beings that thrive on where we decide to spend our time and our money. Sign up to our weekly newsletter at humansofhospitality.co.uk and hit subscribe on your podcast player of choice. Okay, this is the bacon episode, and whether you eat meat or not, there is something about bacon. Perhaps it's the smell as it cooks or the fact that it's an integral part of the full English. But has our long-term familiarity of this staple grown a bit of contempt? Sausages seem to have a higher status. More and more breakfast menus mention the provenance of their Cumberland and their chipolatas, but all too often bacon is just categorised as bacon, so you have no idea where it's come from, how it's been produced, and whether or not it's been plumped up with salt and water. And then there are concerns around nitrates, with the NHS reminding us that eating a lot of red and processed meat probably increases your risk of colorectal cancer. And the market is currently being disrupted by a nitrite-free newcomer. So Ellen Streatfield, marketing and sales manager of Denhay, is well aware of how bacon falls in and out of favour. Since 1994, her family's farm has stuck to their principles of giving bacon the care and attention it deserves, whilst growing their weekly production from 50 to 100 kilograms to 10 to 12 tonnes. So in this programme, we explore how you find the sweet spot between maintaining your standards and surviving commercially in the face of some very tough competition. Enjoy the show. Ellen Streatfield from Denhay, thank you so much for sparing the time to be on the podcast. Hugely appreciated. As has become customary, I suppose, I'm happy today because I've done a few interviews recently in cities and in towns. I feel like I'm back to my spiritual home. Yes. I've just driven through the countryside for an hour. Where are we?
Sun's shining.
It is.
So we're in Broad Oak. We're at Denhay Farm in Broad Oak, which is our dairy farm based through the business. We also have a factory down in Honiton. But yes, we're here today because the sun's shining.
Yeah, it's
nice
beautiful.
Place
So I'm still in Dorset, fundamentally.
You're still in Dorset, yes,
okay,
exactly.
Good. And it's beautiful rolling hills and countryside, and the sun is out. So despite the media hysteria, all is well in the countryside, isn't it?
Yeah, we're all right
here.
at the moment.
We are about, 3.5 foot apart, aren't we? So
we're happy with that.
We're ticking the boxes. So I'm really excited to come and learn predominantly about all things bacon. I think there's, as a restaurateur for the last kind of 17, 18 years, it's always felt like a bit of the food provenance, which is really hard to get right. Yeah. So we are going to do a bit of a deep dive into bacon. But before we go there, I want to start a little bit about the history of the farm and what you've done. So how long have you been here? This is a family farm,
So I've been here, it was 2007 I came back, sort of working full time, so 13 years. And but before that, so the farm was established in 1952 by my grandfather,
Wow.
Commander Streatfield, and a friend of his, Lord Hood. And they started then, and they just had a mixture of. They bought this bit of land. They didn't really know a huge amount about farming, so they had sheep, they had pigs, they had beef, bit of arable. Chickens, everything.
I'm presuming from a military background, and the fact you called him commander.
Yes, so he was in the Navy.
Right,
yes,
okay.
So,
wow, from the Navy to a farm. Do you know why?
Yeah, exactly. He was invalided out of the Navy,
Right.
so and then just wanted to do something different.
Amazing.
They soon realised that the land, so we're in West Dorset, it's sort of quite sandy at the top of the hills, but quite sort of heavy clay at the bottom of the hills. We're rolling hills. The sea is 2 miles, 1 mile directly from the top of the hill.
Wow.
And they soon realised that having sort of mixture of everything doesn't really work here. So they worked out that it was really good dairy land.
Okay.
So they started. They sort of just focused on the dairy side, growing a bit of arable for feeding the crops for the.
Sorry, but I have to get geeky because I can't help myself.
Yeah.
What is it that makes it good for dairy?
So it's quite heavy clay ground.
Yeah.
So having cows sort of coming in and out is all right. It's just not great grazing ground.
Okay.
So beef is not ideal.
Right.
Pigs outside, not good.
Really?
It would be, for pigs to be outside, you need really free draining, sandy soil.
Right.
That's at the top of the hill, but you're not going to get pigs at the top of the hill.
They don't like that.
So you can put young stock on the hill,
Right.
so they can just graze that. But sort of the rest of the valley, so we're in the Marshwood Vale. The rest of the valley is good for dairy, and there are a few beef farms around here, but most of this, I mean, there used to be, God, I can't remember the exact number. There used to be something like 70 or 80 dairy farms just in the Marshwood Vale, and now you're down to sort of, 10, something like that. Just that's the way dairy farming.
Because they're no longer outside
viable
in the land; they're all in big barns somewhere.
Yeah, which is not a bad thing, but it's just the way it is. So the dairy cows that we have are they're inside in the winter and then they come out in the spring.
Right.
So they're still grazing.
Yeah.
So anyway, and then we were milking the cows, and then in the late 50s they started making West Country Farmhouse cheddar.
Okay.
Just because they had all this milk and they wanted to do something, diversify with it, and then the whey, which is a byproduct of making the cheese, went to feed the pigs. They had indoor pig units.
Right.
And that was and then the muck from the pigs would go on the land, and that was a really lovely natural farming cycle, but not always sustainable as the world changes. The pig industry it became very difficult. Sort of in the 2000, we made the decision to stop growing our own pigs. We wanted to use higher welfare pigs.
Yep.
As I said, having pigs here outside is not sustainable.
Right.
So we'd started making bacon in. Sorry, I keep jumping around.
We
started making bacon in the mid-90s.
Yeah.
Actually, before that, in 1989, we started doing an air-dried ham, which was like the first sort of British sort of Parma ham type thing. My parents drove all round Spain and Italy, packed us off to school, and then they went off driving around.
Wow, what a sacrifice they made.
Yeah, I know, isn't it?
In the sunshine.
Exactly. Tasting all this, lovely meats, cured meats and stuff. They came back and they created an amazing sort of recipe of an air-dried ham cured in apple juice, honey and herbs. So that was the first meat that they had all these pigs and they wanted to do something with them.
Yeah.
So that's what that was the first diversification on that side. And then in the mid-90s, I think my mum was like, oh, there's so much rubbish bacon about. She really was getting frustrated, like, why don't we make bacon? So started making, sort of curing a few sides, loins and bellies, and it just sort of took off. We just had a really good recipe right from the off, all dry cured, and that really escalated. I mean, we won a competition in sort of the I don't know, 96, something like that. It was sponsored by Marks and Spencer's. Can't remember what it was. Sponsored by Marks and Spencer, and they said, "Oh, it doesn't make any difference, if you win or not. Anyway, we're just sponsored." And then we won, and then 2 minutes later, they're like, "Oh, we want you to make all our bacon."
Wow! So when was that?
I want to say it's got to be about 96, something like that.
Yeah.
So we went from curing a few slices, a few sides, loins, bellies, and packing it, all done by hand. My mum would drive up to London every 2 weeks and deliver to all the food halls and that sort of thing. And then to suddenly, right, we've got to build a proper factory now. And it's got to be to the highest standard because, if you start supplying Marks and Spencer's, their standards are high straight from the off. So, and that was a real making of us because once you've got to that standard, you're never going to reduce it.
Yeah, that's a huge commitment. How do you know how long they're going to buy from you?
You don't. There is no
contract. And what's the leading?
Because
when they say they're going to buy, are they like, right, we want a delivery Monday? Because how do you ramp up?
Yeah, exactly. So I think there was this was before I was involved in the business, but they were, there was conversations, and I think they worked with us initially. They wanted that bacon, right. So they really helped us get to that stage, and then once we'd got to that stage, get all the accreditation, working the systems through the factory and all of that.
Is that a timing thing? Do you think does that still happen, or do you think that I think it's very different. That horse has bolted now,
that it's very different.
But back then, to get that niche, they were willing to kind of work in partnership.
Definitely, and there may still be some products. I don't know. But there may be in the bacon world. I think it's very different now.
Really? Yeah. Well, we'll come back to that. But before we do, so it was a similar story, and I love the way these things just evolve. Is kind of you start with lots of things, you realise that it's really suitable for dairy. You end up with all of this milk. You think I'll make cheese. You have a byproduct, so you're like, right, I'll get the pigs, so we've got something to feed the byproduct to, and before you know it, you're making bacon. So it's clever how it all kind of follows, I suppose. But was it the same story with cheese? Because it wasn't, you were producing that en masse for Waitrose and the like,
so we were doing Waitrose own label, West Country Farm has cheddar. We did it for about 25 years.
And was that a similar thing, where one day you were supplying cheese to the local market, and the next day Waitrose came in and said, I
think it was, I don't know how sort of the volume ramped up, but I think because we were making cheese for quite a long time, and then I think there were, I don't know where the market was, or we were supplying another retailer, whether we were in, I can't remember if it was Sainsbury's or something. I don't know. It's before I was born.
Yeah.
So that sort of side, and I think we worked very much with Waitrose because Waitrose grew massively, in that stage from the sort of early 90s, didn't they? They had big expansion, so we sort of grew with them. The cheddar market is incredibly competitive.
Yeah. So what? So you work with them. So you're lovely, happy partners for 20 odd years. What changed?
It they helped us. They supported us, but in the end, it comes down to the promotions. They've got to sell volume, and we were making the cheddar. It's the West Country Farmhouse cheddar, so it's all done by hand, but making the block cheddars. So we were making a handmade product, but competing with the larger producers, the factory, Cathedral City, and that sort of thing, who can produce it with a lot less. It's not handmade. Hasn't got that extra process, which for us we really valued, and we couldn't financially make it work.
Okay, so the market shifted. There was not another market to sell to at that point.
No, we tried to look into export, that sort of thing, but we're a small business, and to get into export and that side, we were doing a bit to America, but you've got to spend a lot of money. You've got to be over there. You've got to. We just didn't have the resources to do that, and we just couldn't. We fought hard on it with the cheese because it was really sad to stop making the cheese. So we stopped making the cheese about 6 or 7 years ago now.
Right, and it was a good product. Is there a similar product available?
There is
in the supermarkets, or have they compromised?
The year that we stopped making West Country Farmhouse cheddar, I think 3 or 4 other West Country farmhouse cheddar makers also stopped making it.
Right.
There are now 1 or 2 that are doing it on a bigger scale, so they can do it. And then there are some lovely smaller producers that are still doing the very sort of traditional rounds, the 20 kilo traditionals.
So it sounds like you were caught in the middle, really.
We were caught
between the big guys, but too big to be a little guy.
Completely.
So to scale it back that far would have been challenging. It's a shame, isn't it? Because I don't know. I guess you were exactly the right place, right time to see the growth.
Exactly.
But I'd like to think that we'll get another growth. We'll want to go back to that kind of
style. I think so,
and
I keep threatening.
Can you ramp it back up?
But all the kit's gone. We would have to start all over again.
Don't do that.
No.
Just have a rest.
Yeah.
I've learned over the last 20 years of being self-employed eventually.
Bacon's doing well. So
yeah. So you've stopped producing cheese.
Yeah.
There was a little rumour going around that you've got 1 lump left in your freezer. Is that right?
I have got a lump left.
That must be worth about £1,000.
And a pack of butter as well. And I just can't bear to take it out because I know as soon as I take that pack of butter out, it's going to go rancid and it'll probably taste horrible. It looks much nicer in my freezer.
In your freezer. But you've still kept the cows and the dairy
still
farm.
Milking, yeah.
So what happens to the milk now then?
Just all goes to Muller.
Oh, does it? Okay.
Yeah, so we're milking about 1,000 cows.
So in some ways you specialise in the bit you're good at,
presumably,
exactly. And then it goes off to still get used. So okay. Is it true? So I've got to ask while I'm checking because I keep trying to get an answer to this around. We hear a lot about milk being produced sort of sub-cost, I suppose, particularly, I guess, when it's going into the supermarket. But then I chatted to Black Cow about their vodka, which was all vodka. It was about their vodka. But the milk was going into cheese production. Yeah. Is it better to be putting it into, yogurts and cheeses than it is to be supplying directly to the supermarkets as milk? Do you get a different amount of cash?
So it all goes to Muller. We have part of it goes to Waitrose. It's when you're producing a large amount, you just need that consistency. You need that market. Ideally, it would be lovely to go into a product. I'd love to supply an ice cream or something like that. But I think in the end, but who knows where that milk goes? Does it go to fresh milk? Does it go to products? Does it go to making milk powder and then go across the world? Milk is a global product, commodity like oil. So that price is driven by what's going on in the world.
Does it change the price regularly?
Yeah.
Daily or?
I've asked Patrick in the office. He'll always it will.
Because it always feels really difficult if you know the price that you're going to get for your product at the end of it. You know what inputs you can put into it, so you know about what feed you can use and how you look after the animals. But if you don't know, if it's market forces,
it
feels like your not even inclination, but your requirement is almost to produce it at the lowest cost as possible, just in case.
Yeah, I mean when we made the decision to stop making cheese, the price of milk was really good. And literally within 6 months, the price of milk crashed. I mean, it went down, 10, 15p. And that is, if you think you're milking 1,000 cows, you're getting however many litres, I don't know, of milk from a cow a day, every half penny makes a difference between losing money and making money.
So how do we resolve that?
Absolutely no idea.
Why we're going to talk about bacon. So.
Yes, exactly. Let's talk about bacon.
Because who knows? Okay, but so still many people left from. So it was your grandfather.
So
then
my
your
grandfather,
dad was here. You were born here.
Exactly, I was born here, and so my dad is one of 5, and he's the youngest of 5. So all the others have gone off and done other things. So he was here. He came back. My grandfather died in the 70s, late 70s. So I never met him. And so I think that sort of helped the decision for my dad to come back to the business. And so they were here. My parents still live on the farm, but they're retired sort of from day-to-day running.
Right.
They sort of stepped aside. And we have our managing director, Jim Loescher, who's he came in as our finance director, and he's our managing director, and he's nice. So he has been brilliant at sort of taking all the creativity and making it viable. Into a business, right. Which is really important.
Okay. So are you not the last, hopefully, because you've got a couple
of
kids,
so
but you're the current family link. Are you back to your granddad?
I still have I have 2 sisters and a brother. So my brother is sort of in the dairy Not working here at the moment. He's in London, but he's very keen. He went to Reading, studied agriculture and that sort of thing. So he's very keen on cows.
Great.
So there's always a hope that he'll come back, but no pressure. None of us ever had any pressure to come back.
I always think it's interesting. I've spoken to a few farmers, and when it becomes multi-generational, I think. Fifth generation. When I was chatting about yogurt not too long ago, and almost. If you don't do it, it's kind of like, you almost feel that family responsibility to keep it going.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm so passionate about it. I mean, I studied maths at university. Right. So... you
should know the price of that milk.
Exactly. I should know the price of that milk. I try not to block it out. So I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but went off and did various things and worked for a sort of French food company in London. And then... London wasn't for me. Did it for a couple of years. Good to get out your system, but decided to come back here, and I am so passionate about the product and the heritage of it.
Well, perfect. So we'll chat bacon then, and we'll go into the reasons why as we chat. But so you started producing bacon here how long ago? So this was after the charcuterie. 94.
Yeah, 94 started making that.
And started relatively small, but
but it only took a couple of years
before M&S came on board. Okay, so even from your childhood, then you sort of remember it in its current guise. Has it changed a lot? Has it continued to change since then?
I mean, I spent every school holiday, at any time, sitting there laying out rashers of bacon, vacuum packing packs of bacon. It was very much part of my childhood, which was great, Was this
for M&S? I'm just imagining the scale that you have really long school holidays.
Yes, but you start at 6 o'clock in the morning, so
wow.
Little
did they know. Well, child labour, you wouldn't be allowed to do that now. You'd be in trouble.
I mean, yes, we've massively improved our system.
It's not still, your kids aren't sat there.
No,
vacuum packing.
Not yet, but my son does love bacon. He loves to come when I do consumer shows. He loves to stand there with a plate and offer it to people.
Nice.
Try the bacon.
Yeah, come on.
And then he eats half of it, so I have to take him away. They'll be in there.
But it's now a fairly sizable operation.
Yeah, so we started off with just doing, 50, 100 kilos a week, and we're now up to sort of 10, 12 tons a week.
Wow. Okay.
And that is, I think that the key to all of that is we have not changed our method of production. It is still, a handmade bacon. The loins and the bellies come in. The salt is rubbed in by hand. It's left to mature and cure for up to sort of 10 days, and then it's sort of tempered down for another couple of days, and then it's sliced. And so it can take sort of 3 weeks to make a pack of bacon. And I think, but we've done it exactly the same. I mean, we've got bigger bits of machinery now. We have 2 massive slicers, but it was done by hand previously.
So you'd seen this historically where you'd done it with cheese, you'd made it by hand, but all of a sudden people came in and started doing it in a mass-produced way and brought the cost down. It almost sounds like a similar trajectory with the bacon in the fact that so you're trying to keep it handmade and keep it real.
That point of difference.
What's happening around you? Was all bacon made that way 25 years ago when you started?
No, I think all bacon was made that way, 100 years ago.
Right.
I think sort of probably in the 70s, 80s, it was this bacon, a quick and easy way of making bacon is to pump it with a salt solution. And that's what a lot of people did. And so taking it back to that dry curing method, which is what we do, was not what the big people were doing. And the bacon market, there was a lot of sort of small butchers and stuff doing their own, that sort of thing. But in terms of actually ramping up to being a product that you could sell in a supermarket, I mean, we started, obviously, apart from the Marks and Spencer's thing, we got into Waitrose in the late 90s, and started in 30 stores, and again sort of grew with them as a regional product, but then grew with them, and now we're in all stores.
Right, and you went straight in at this sort of premium end of the market.
Yeah,
so at the same, were the likes of M&S and Waitrose selling the kind of mass-produced different stuff at the same
definitely.
time?
Most of what it was. So
you guys came in as the more traditional premium kind
and because initially we were using our own whey-fed pigs, which was a nice sort of story.
Yep.
But then I think animal welfare, completely became a bigger
so I want to talk about that. So you at that time, pigs indoors, you said it's not suitable outside to have them outside here, but you made a conscious decision to stop keeping your own pigs. What was the motivation behind that?
Losing money. I mean, many different aspects. We were raising the pigs and then selling them and buying back the loins and the bellies and the legs or whatever that we needed.
So of a pig, sorry to interrupt again, you'll get used to it. A whole carcass animal, you use, what percentage gets used in bacon? And some of it, well, not 90%, but some of it goes to...
So a pig, so we'll buy the backs. Each back will be about 4 kilos. So I have 2 of those, and the bellies, which are about probably 1.5-2 kilos each. So you're using 10-12 kilos of meat from a pig. A pig, when it dies, will be maybe 70, 80, 90 kilos.
Yeah. Okay.
So
some of the rest of it is either chops or mince
exactly.
or loin, various cuts. So
ham, gammon.
Fine. So you were selling the whole pig and then buying back the bit you needed.
The expensive bit. Because essentially that's where the money is.
Okay.
In the back and the belly.
So no, it's fun. It's hard to get your head around that scenario, I suppose,
completely,
a little bit, isn't it? That you were to the same person, or I guess you send the pig to the abattoir.
We send it to the abattoir, and then they will deal with the rest of it, and
you buy it.
Just buy that.
Gotcha.
So, and also, the pig sheds had been there since whenever the 60s. They needed investment if we were going to continue to do that. But I think we made that decision. Our customers were looking more to the animal welfare. We were very much on that. We want to use the outdoor bred pigs as much as possible. So that's sort of when we made that decision in 2000.
Fine. So, and this is often the case. So there's a financial motivation to make the change, but at the same time as making the change, you kind of go, right, environmentally. There's a pressure from a consumer environmentally. Is that something you'd kind of witnessed and thought yourself? See, I've not been in big barns full of pigs, but if you do, does it kind of motivate you and go, actually, that doesn't look like a particularly good way of raising pigs? We should go outside.
I think it's all different. The sort of growing pigs is it's a really fascinating. I mean, we don't have pigs here now. I don't get to go and visit the pigs, but because we work with farmers up in Yorkshire and Scotland, because they're good for growing pigs outside. But I think it's, if you've got an outdoor bred pig, it spends the first 6 to 8 weeks of its life outside with its mother, and then it's weaned, and then it comes into the big sort of straw-bedded airy barns. So they're RSPCA assured, so they tick those boxes. They have lots of water and food and that sort of thing. You can look at it, all the other aspects. You can have some really horrific indoor pig units, but you can also have some really good indoor pig units which are clean, they have no infection. That depends on the unit and the farmer.
Right.
And the same with free range and organic. You can have some pigs outside all year round. I mean, in the weather we've had at the moment, I wouldn't want to be a pig outside all year round. It can't be much fun. And so if you haven't got someone that can that really worries about the welfare and things of that pig, then that can be an animal welfare issue, because if they're outside all the time, they're going to get ill, they're going to have a foot rot and that sort of thing. So, but again, if you have a good pig farmer, it's good. So it's getting that balance, and it really depends on the farm and the farmer and who you work with.
Yeah, that's why I always think these things are nuanced, I guess. And we're seeing, huge growth in interest around kind of plant-based food and veganism and all that kind of stuff at the front, in the hospitality side, in the restaurant side. So we're permanently trying to find that sweet spot and that balance. So there'll be some people who are veggie, some are vegan, some are meat eaters. We're not there to judge, whilst at the same time recognising, I suppose, the environmental aspects. And definitely on a personal level, feeling that I'm not on planet Earth to make the world worse.
Yeah.
If anything, let's keep it the same, or ideally make it better. So bacon for us is always, whereas with everything else, we've been able to go on a much higher sort of provenance journey, and we can meet the farmer, and we can buy as local as we can. Fish is complicated, but we can do it. Bacon's always felt like a real challenge, because you either get the style of bacon, you can either go to your local butcher and buy it, and it can be super expensive, prohibitively so from what a customer will pay for breakfast. You can take it to the extreme of the real kind of proper cured, kind of air dried, maybe over a couple, 2 or 3 months kind of process. What bacon maybe was once upon a time, but actually it's so unrecognizable to the consumer that they don't even actually want it, let alone be willing to pay for it. So we were on this journey of trying to find the sweet spot, I suppose, where it still looks like bacon, still tastes like bacon, because the vast majority of our customers still have a full English breakfast or a bacon roll. But actually, where's the and I come from a backdrop, I suppose, of wanting as high animal welfare as possible. But at this stage, also recognising, where's the sweet spot? The definition of a sustainable restaurant is a restaurant that's still open. So you can't be so sustainable that you go out of business. If we're on a trajectory of positivity where we can constantly, because I think in general food is too cheap, and we need to recognise that we all need to be spending a little bit more on food. So if the trajectory is positive, then that's a good thing. But so what you've tried to do is find the sweet spot, I suppose, between animal welfare and provenance, but also realistic enough to know that you're in a market, with all of those forces.
And I think, so we really focused on, for many years, on the retail side of the market, because that's where we were getting growth. That's where there was definitely a gap. We're sort of taking it back now to that hospitality side and trying to, I speak to a lot of chefs, I speak to a lot of hotels and restaurants and that sort of thing. And, there is so much cheaper bacon out there. And they all agree, I hate that white stuff. I hate all that water that comes out.
Yeah, the oily
but you don't have to have it. And that's the thing. It's making people realise that actually there are other options. But I think in the food service world, it's been so driven by the bulk, by, the pallets of imported meat, full of water, because it's cheaper.
It's odd though, because there's been this trajectory away from that in so many other parts.
And that's what I don't understand, why bacon is like the last thing.
Yeah, well, that's kind of why I wanted to come and have this conversation, because it's been, we've been guilty of it, and I think chefs are guilty of it. It's very hard to find a chef who gets excited about making breakfast.
Yeah,
so
completely.
Chefs will love the finesse of kind of a la carte kind of dining, evening dining experience, making a nice souffle or roasted bass or whatever it might be doing. But actually, you can tell a lot about a chef by the ability to make breakfast. There's a lot of components to a breakfast, and do it well with really good, tomatoes and maybe a homemade fritter or brown. Yeah. Your sausages. Yeah. I mean that's pretty common now that people will go for a better sausage.
Menus will definitely say free range sausage or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Bacon's still just bacon.
And it's just bacon.
It's sort of
because there's lots of names for sausages, isn't it? You can have pork and chorizo and Cumberland and herbed and all that. But you never get that bacon. You just get bacon. Is that the problem? Bacon's
smoked.
Got a brand.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. We were, I was trying to work out what do you call it? I mean, this isn't just bacon. This is really good dry cure bacon. I think dry cure bacon is getting, it's being more recognised now.
So let's start there. Because we started to touch on this, but we go a little bit deeper. So what's dry cured? You touched on the process you do, so just explain what dry cured is, but then say how most bacon is produced by contrast.
So a dry cure bacon is when you have your loin or belly and you rub the salt in. So there'll be you have to have salt to make bacon, and because that is how it's cured. So you rub your salt cure mix on, and how we do it is we weigh our loin beforehand. We know how much that weighs. We know how much salt should be on it. So then the salt's put on by hand.
3%, is it 3%?
Something like that, yeah, exactly. So our bacon, once it's produced, is 97% pork and then salt and that's it. So that literally that's all you're doing, and you're leaving it to cure in the salt mixture. And then with sort of, they're in a different, we do a Wiltshire cure bacon as well, which is sort of on a smaller scale, but just have a small amount of it, but it goes to Waitrose, and it's a traditional live brine. So it's in a brine. So I think it's about 93% pork. So it's got a bit of water in, but it uses the live bacteria in the brine to cure it as well as the salt. It's really tasty. It's great bacon. And then you've got the cheaper bacon that's full of water and salt. So that will be injected with a salt solution. So that's where they're putting a whole load of water in it and salt, because it's a really quick and cheap way of doing it. So that will be about 85% pork. And the rest will be water and salt.
Fine. So the idea of the curing process is so that the meat is partly a flavour and how we like it, but fundamentally it was because we didn't want meat to go off, wasn't it?
Exactly.
So if you dry cured properly, and I say properly, you can actually leave the meat for months, can't you, before it would go rancid.
Yeah.
You're not leaving it for months.
No.
You're kind of, do you say 2 weeks? Do you say?
It's about 3 weeks.
3 weeks. Okay.
3 weeks.
Because it's always a little bit confusing. I don't know on the shelf life of your bacon, but when traditionally, if you went to a proper dry cured bacon, it wouldn't really necessarily, have a shelf life. You could have it hanging and just peel off bits if you wanted.
Exactly.
That's when it gets to the point where it starts to taste gamey and it's not what people want.
It's not what people want.
But the flip side is you get bacon that's got a 3-day shelf life on it, and you're kind of like, how can that be a bacon? Because if it was cured, it wouldn't last 3 days.
Completely.
So the idea of injecting it with water and with salt, this is about making it taste like bacon, even though it's not.
No, it's about making it really quickly.
Right.
And so they can do that, and you can inject it with your salt solution. Because the thing with dry curing is you've got to wait for that salt to infiltrate into all of the meat.
Yeah.
And it has to do that, that takes time. That's where the time is. With an injection, the salt's straight in there. So essentially you can cure it, pump it full of water and salt, and then slice it 2-3 days later and pack it, and you've got your bacon. Okay. And it will still taste like bacon, because it's got that salt, it's got all the ingredients in, but it's also it's full of water.
Right. So then you've got partly the I guess it would start with sourcing of the product. So is the not necessarily even the presumption is it a fact that the cheaper bacons don't start with the kind of higher welfare outdoor reared? This would generally be the mass produced.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have different retailers have different levels of their welfare and where they get their meat from. But yeah, I mean, if you're starting right at the bottom, it won't be British. And it will be wet cured. It will be. So
I definitely get the animal welfare bit. Mm-hmm. Then the argument around if you can inject it and make it full of water and it tastes like bacon, what's the downside? Is it flavour? Is it the fact you're being ripped off because 15% of it's going to evaporate when you put it in the frying pan?
Yeah. So you've got the water that you're essentially paying for water. It bulks it up. So when obviously if you're injecting it with water, it'll expand, it'll go bigger. So when you cook it, it shrivels down. So you need to use a lot more of it to make your bacon sandwich, because, one rash you start, off like that and it just gets really, really small.
Yeah, okay. And then you would expect it also to be less flavoursome because it hasn't had the 3 weeks kind of curing process.
It hasn't got that good texture. And
it's much wetter rather than you say dry cured, kind of clues in the name, I suppose, isn't it? So you get a nice dry bacon. Okay, so then we also need to touch on nitrites.
Yes.
Where does this come into it and what are they for?
So nitrites have always been in bacon. So back in the olden days, they would use a thing called saltpeter, which has potassium nitrate in, which is it's a naturally occurring nitrate. It does the same sort of job, but it sort of breaks down really unevenly. So you can't really use it. I'm not sure if it's even a legal product anymore. I think they use it in making bombs and things like that. Right. So we use sodium nitrite in our bacon. It preserves it. It gives it shelf life. It gives it pink colour. So the nitrite in bacon is needed to make it bacon. If you just use it with salt, it is salt pork. It won't be pink. It'll go grey in colour, and it won't have a good shelf life.
Okay.
We're obviously aware of the World Health Organization. You can't ignore the fact that they put out their statement that bacon gives you cancer. Okay, well, let's just break it down, because everything gives you cancer these days. You know, if you're eating 70 grams a day, every day, it will increase your chance of getting bowel cancer.
How many rashes is that?
That's like 3 rashes every day. It could increase your chance of getting bowel cancer. For us, we can't find a way of making a dry cure bacon, which is what we do, you know, really good quality bacon, without using nitrites. You know, we're not stupid. We need to look into this because we get asked about it all the time. But, you know, we would just talk about the fact that you just eat less and eat better. You know, eat a good quality product, not every day.
Yeah.
I don't want to kill my market, but
but I think most people are recognising, and it's been interesting and kind of refreshing, I think, that the farming community, you know, you think in the modern world it's just, you know, sell more, pile it high, you know, we need to sell as much as possible. But actually, certainly with the people that I speak to, even Helen Browning from the Organic Association was kind of recognising, you know, which was probably a slightly dangerous stance as a pig farmer and representing the industry, but going, you know what, we just need people to eat less of it.
Yeah.
But what we do need people to do is eat better.
Yeah, completely.
So eat less, but pay a bit more and pay for the quality.
Yeah.
And that seems to be pretty much recognised across the field, certainly with probably with all food in general, but definitely on the meat side of the market.
Definitely.
Most of the producers I speak to, aren't asking people to eat more meat. They're saying, could you just pay a little bit more and buy better? Completely. Basically.
And that's it's a tricky message to get across when you're trying to sell more bacon. But
you're not trying to sell more bacon to your existing customers, I guess.
No, exactly.
You'd like to sell more bacon to other people. It's not like, would you mind having bacon for breakfast, lunch and dinner, please? That would really help us out.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that would be lovely.
It's
but
kind of the
that's
same
not...
at the front of the world. At restaurant world, I don't actually want my customers coming in 3 times a day and ending up obese and, you know, dying by 50. I would actually, and same with booze. You don't want people to come in and get absolutely hammered every night. You'd rather they came in and, you know, have a nice bottle of wine sometimes, or have a couple of cocktails, but don't have 10 cocktails.
And that's the thing, you know, the bacon category that the World Health Organization put it into is the same as alcohol. Well, you know, no one's going to stop. I mean, some people don't drink alcohol, but, you know, a lot of people like a beer, a glass of wine or whatever. So, you know, it's the same thing. Have it in moderation. Yeah.
I think you're right. I think for some people, you know, it goes back to the plant-based vegan active, and that's fine. That's a different trajectory. But you're right. For most people, would recognise having 10 pints a day is bad for you. 10 rashers of bacon a day is probably bad for you.
Great,
but in the same way that we're getting a growth in kind of craft breweries, I suppose, and people interested in the provenance of where their beer comes from and who's making it, then it would be nice if it was the same in bacon. So if you didn't use nitrates, basically, you wouldn't. It wouldn't be safe to eat. It wouldn't last. You wouldn't have the.
I mean, it's really difficult because we have an amazing QC team. They look at this all the time. We feel that food safety is really key when you're supplying 10 tons of bacon a week. It's got to be safe for people to eat. Also, we're supplying, the retail world, so you need that, you need to give it a good shelf life. Ours will probably have about 28 to 30 days on it. And so, we can't find that solution that makes a safe bacon and makes it taste like bacon, because that's what people want. I mean, it's like having bacon or something like that. I mean, I don't really get that sort of...
they're terrible names, are they?
But I think if people want bacon, they want proper bacon. They want it to taste like bacon. Yes, there's definitely a market for maybe a nitrate-free bacon, but at the moment we can't work out.
So somebody's been working on that. Hopefully you don't mind us talking about it. But I guess on 2 things happen. I suppose if the WHO come out and start talking about this and making it an issue and start making it with cancer, and all of a sudden the press, it becomes a focus. And I'm sure it becomes a focus for a relatively short period of time and then disappears out again. But then you've got the likes of Naked kind of trying to come up with their nitrite-free. Have you been given, you'd like to think that the kind of meat producing community would be getting together and going, right, if there is an issue with nitrites, how are we going to solve this? Are you getting any advice? Is it being discussed about in kind of farming world? What's your experience of finding a different solution?
It's definitely being discussed, and our QC team have regular meetings with the meat industry, with the other producers, the bigger bacon producers. And they're all very aware of it, and they're trying to work on a solution. Because in the end, you can't ignore the fact that this will come up, again and again, and the World Health Organization talk about it. So, and as an industry, that they are trying to look for a solution. Naked Bacon have done a great thing in that they've brought a huge amount of people back into the bacon category that left. So for us, we saw a bit of a drop. We've seen more of a drop because people have moved away from meat, like the sort of the veganism and that sort of thing. Last year was a massive drop. But I think actually, what Naked have done have just sort of expanded the bacon category into where people have just moved away. So for us, it hasn't had a huge effect. But yeah, I mean, the industry is definitely working on it, and there are definitely conversations going on.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it comes a little bit back, I think, in some ways to the farming community had this kind of period of time where it was a kind of, get off my land kind of scenario. And then that's kind of backfired a little bit because I think over time people have become a little bit suspicious. So why can't we come and look around your barns and kind of see? Not that you expect to actually just be able to rock up and pop in because people are running a business, but I like the idea of the let's open it up, let's get on my land.
Yeah.
Actually, let's rebuild trust in the food supply system. Come and have a look. I think people like you are quite happy to have this conversation and go, you know what? Let's talk about how it's made. Let's look at best practice, worst practice. Where's the sweet spot? Where's the middle spot? It rather than the kind of activist or everybody kind of throwing things at each other and getting angry, it's like let's have a mature debate. Most people, it's interesting when you say that sales dropped off last year, I guess, because although we're seeing at the front at the sort of coalface a big growth in plant-based, it's still, you're talking about massive growth on a relatively small niche.
Yes.
Bacon, even to a lot of veggies and vegans, seems to be that thing that people really love and they really crave and they really want it. And I think for a lot of people, if we can get if it's not an oxymoron, but if you can get the animal welfare side of that sorted, they're either, like most people aren't having 3 slices a day, 7 days a week. Exactly. So they're quite happy to find some sort of level of compromise. But it's not actually an expensive product, is it? So if you can spend an extra 50p, but then this is the same with so many farmers that I'm speaking to about whatever their product is. They're like, the difference between good practice and bad practice at the point of the consumer might only be 15 to 20%, which on a £3 packet of something, 30p, 40p, to some people that'll be a big deal, but to a lot of people,
who are in that premium end, it's that it's not a lot of, it's not a huge difference for them.
Not a huge investment to know the difference, I suppose. Which is why it's been interesting as to target market, I guess. So you're deliberately trying to open your market
definitely
from the supermarkets with a focus, and the reason that we ended up chatting is we moved to, I don't know how long ago we moved to your bacon actually, but
Christmas, it was October, November.
For again, this sort of, it was really hard actually to find the sweet spot, and I'm not necessarily saying we've nailed it, hopefully we have with you guys, but like I say, to find that sweet spot between provenance and welfare and nitrites and all that kind of stuff. But it does seem surprising that it gets left to the last minute. So what's your experience and going out to flipping from the supermarkets and going out to the hospitality industry? How have you found it? What's the general kind of feedback and trajectory?
So we started really sort of trying to push this 2 years ago probably, and very sort of started just thinking, right, I'm going to go to all the B&Bs in Dorset and Devon, West Country, there's hundreds of them, they'll want our bacon, and then realising they've got like 4 bedrooms, they can just either they get it from their butcher, they can just go and buy our bacon in Waitrose when it's on offer and stockpile it, that sort of thing. So I just thought, okay, well maybe that's not the target. So just going out, doing some trade shows, sort of focused on the Southwest to start with. And it's really interesting. I think just there is this, everyone says, oh, I hate cooking my bacon and all that water and white stuff comes out. It's like, oh, you don't have to. There is an option out there. But it's still, price is that massive barrier. They, even though they'll all agree, because I cook up bacon here, there and everywhere, and they'll all agree that, ours tastes amazing. but price is that barrier. So I've been sort of just going around and sort of expanding it, going up to London, doing some trade shows up there, and just trying to speak to the sort of hotels, bigger hotels, but again, having massive, even the real 5-star hotels, it's a price game for them. And for me, trying to get bacon down from Devon up to London several times a week is a no-go. You know, we don't have a van that, you know, because we focused on the retail side. You know, yes, I can get one hotel. I mean, I supply one hotel in London, and they just have an order once a week, and it's great. It goes up in a wall cool box, you know, through DPD, and it's great. And they really, it's the Farmers Club in London, so they really want to focus on their.
If anybody's going to do it, you'd
exactly,
like to think
exactly, which is great. But it's trying to get that. You know, that costs a little bit more to do that. If I could get enough customers to get a van up once a week, then that would be great, and then the cost comes down. But it's that chicken and egg scenario. I can't be losing money just to say, oh, I might fill a van, so let's offer this price up. So
you're supplying direct at the moment, then, not
supplying.
Via a wholesaler.
I supply a couple of wholesalers in the southwest, but in London we were really struggling to get anyone. So I'm doing it direct at the moment.
Because there's a competitor similar to you, or because people are just going for the cheap stuff?
People, it's a mix. They're going with what they've always done. So a lot of people will buy from the big, you know, Compass Brakes, those sorts of people. And, you know, they're not interested in our bacon. I believe they'll come round to it. They will, you know, people will start asking more for a dry cure, a British bacon. So, you know, I've got to keep being there.
Because what is the price difference then between what, say, Brakes would be selling there?
They'll be selling
and what you need to sell for?
Yeah, the sort of lowest end of the market will be $3.50 a kilo. Ours, it varies, but it'll be around sort of £8-9 a kilo.
So it is more, you know, it's like 100-something %.
But you know what, I keep going, you get a much better rasher count. You know, so in ours you get about 30 rashers per kilo for the wholesale bacon, and in the mass produced stuff you'll get about 45 rashers in a 2.275 kilo.
Right.
They're big old rashers.
You're the mathematician, but I think there was more in yours, wasn't there?
Yeah, exactly, per kilo. And you get all that water. So you need more rashers of the cheaper stuff. So you only need 2 or 3 rashers of our bacon to make a good bacon sandwich, or, you know, on a fried breakfast, you need 2 rashers. But it's, you know, getting chefs to change their mindset, to change their habits. All of this is really hard work.
It's definitely a challenge, and it is hard because the trouble is it's only become worse in the last couple of years. You know, the margins in restaurants overall are stupidly small, although people presume that, you know, all restaurateurs are millionaires. It's bonkers how tight it is. So 20% maybe, you know, but if you got 100 odd percent, it is a really challenging decision. However, you know, you're absolutely right. People want British, they want ethics, they recognise, I think, you know, increasingly so, the difference between a dry cured and a very wet product. We all know what that slimy, white, watery stuff is. I sympathise with the challenge. However, you know, I also sympathise that if it took us, who I like to think are normally at the sort of front end of what's going on, if it took us so long, and it was a lot of it was down to finding, but there was, you know, it was also definitely a price compensation as well. I think maybe when we started with you guys, did we buy a pallet in the first instance or something?
Well, there was discussions for pallet. I'm still trying to get a pallet, right? Because you'll get a cheaper price.
Yeah, okay. Well, we'll have that. We'll have that conversation. It's generally, and that is the difficulty at the coalface as well, is storage and number of delivery days and all that kind of stuff. We've tried to solve that problem by getting some storage space and a big fridge and a big freezer and stuff like that, but that's getting into the nuances of my own business. I do find it fascinating because although, you know, we've never been at the premium end, but there are a lot of really lovely hotels, lovely restaurants. It's hard to imagine how chef puts so much effort into the sort of lunch and dinner trade.
Completely.
But breakfast and bacon gets missed. Good luck on but I think you will. You will win. Yeah. Having gone through this experience, you know, food and drink is a really it's an industry that I think people are falling back in love with. Food and drink. I think we became very disconnected. Yeah. We bizarrely, you know, almost just trusted that the system was fine and working and that food provenance was good. And only recently have we kind of come to terms with the fact that, actually, there's quite a lot of problems in our food supply chain, and there's quite a lot of environmental issues. But I do think it's getting a lot of people now excited to get back into food and drink, and a lot of maybe people to go back into farming who'd always thought that it was, you were born into farming. It wasn't something you could get into. Are you aware? Have you seen this kind of tenanted farming kind of thing? Are you seeing new people coming into the industry? And if somebody was asking for advice from somebody who's been doing it since commander level, what would you say that people that want to get into food and drink?
You've got to be prepared to work really, really hard. Especially, if in actual farming, in land management, growing animals, all of that. If you want to succeed, you've got to do it really well. And so, and that doesn't just happen on a sort of half-hearted, effort. You've got to do it properly. And my sister's married the sort of next door dairy farmer, and he's an amazing, it's a very, very sort of family. It's him and his dad, and they've just done an amazing job with how they've done it. And
in regards to changing the process?
Just looking at different options and sort of technology and that sort of thing, and it really works. And I think, for Denhay here, we need to look at different ways of doing things, because you can't just sit there doing the same thing forever, because life doesn't work like that. And that's not how you're gonna keep going as a successful business. You've got to look at different options, and I think we've definitely done that over the years. But you've got to be committed to that. Really.
Do you know Tom from the Open Air Dairy?
I don't know him.
Have you listened to that episode yet?
No, I haven't yet.
Have a listen. Because that was fascinating, I think,
it's
in
really
that different approach to dairy farming. But also, similar to yours in the fact that sometimes the motivation is actually cash.
Yeah.
And the animal welfare side of it sort of came further down the line. And it was the same with Tom. The initial motivation was, I don't have any land, although he came from a farming background. I don't have any land anymore. How do I get into farming without any money or any land? And so cost started as the motivator. But as he did that, then all of a sudden, open air, dairy kind of milking in the fields, and the trajectory became run about happier or higher welfare animals and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
So it's funny the good stuff that can come off the back of it. But I would. But
getting sort of young and enthusiastic farmers, milkers and that sort of thing is really hard. Yeah. Really, really tricky to get people who are passionate and enthusiastic. We've got a good team at the moment, but it's
I hope we're on the brink of change. It's been the same in chef world for a while, but we're definitely seeing almost enforced a little bit. A lot of chefs don't naturally want to cook along the kind of the plant-based changes that we've seen, but actually that is motivating them to open their eyes a little bit more and go, okay, again, this isn't about necessarily not cooking meat anymore, but it's kind of recognizing that if people want to eat it a little bit less, it reignites their kind of passion and creativity and actually improves all of the food they do, but also gets them to look a little bit more into why are those changes happening, and a bit more into provenance and environmental. So I'd like to think that we're on the cusp of change. I watch and listen to a lot of US-based stuff, and certainly, they often tend to be a few years ahead, but this comes back to that getting worse and getting better, because America's got huge problems with its massive farms and mass-produced, exactly. But it's also, because of how bad the bad is, got some great examples of really good stuff happening because people are reacting and looking at it, and there's enough hippies in California where they're kind of going, I don't want to eat like that.
Exactly.
And they've got the cash to fix it. So hopefully we will, we'll see some changes. That sort of history that we touched on very briefly of seeing what happened in cheese and going big, and then you guys kind of dropping out of the market. Does it feel like the same is going to happen in bacon, or do you feel like you're further down the line of change now?
Yeah, I think we're further down the line. I think yes, there's competition, but not so much. Like in cheese, there's a huge amount of competition, and we still have that clear point of difference from the big boys, and I think we keep winning awards, we keep doing that sort of thing, and at the moment that's enough. Who knows?
Yeah. So talking of awards, it just reminded me, didn't you get royal accreditation at some point as well? How does that work? Because that looked pretty cool.
We started making bacon for Dutchy Originals right back in the beginning, when they that was earlier, sort of 98, 99, something like that. And then, so there was probably, to start with, maybe 6 or 7 licensees for Duchy. There was the biscuits, some chocolates, can't remember. Anyway, we were one of the sort of initial ones. So my dad would have regular meetings with Prince Charles and that sort of thing. And then we started making some bacon just for him.
For Charles?
For Prince Charles, yeah. And so, yes, we still do that. And that's how we got the royal warrant for continually. We do it sort of 3 or 4 times a year. We'll make a batch of the Prince's bellies, we call them. It has a special smoke so it's not a product that anyone else can get. So it's an organic streaky bacon. So you're buying special organic bellies, and then we cure them. So I'll still dry cure bacon, but it has a special smoke. So then we'll just slice it and pack it, and then it goes various places around the country.
Okay. So that's how because I don't know how the royal accreditation works, but fundamentally,
so
if you are
years,
supplying the royal family, you can use the.
No, they have to give it to you. You can't just use it.
I'll just send them something in the post and
go,
here you go. Did you eat it?
Yeah,
great,
no,
thank you.
Get this off.
Sticking that on the brochure.
Exactly. So. We started supplying them, and we supplied him for 10 years, and then I don't know whether we applied for it or then it just sort of, they said, oh, you can
have a logo.
Award.
Does that make a difference? I mean, from a commerciality kind of sales? I
think it gives our consumers confidence in the product. It's really difficult. Like most marketing things, does this logo actually make a difference?
Yeah. But they don't charge you a license for using it or whatever, or make you jump through certain hoops. But it's nice to know, you're basically having, Charlie's breakfast.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what it's going on our menu.
Yeah, exactly.
Charlie's breakfast. That's going to be the new bacon bat. Sorry, future king, with all great respect. He's probably listening, I would imagine. I don't imagine he misses an episode. Okay, so what's the trajectory then? You've got the confidence, the product's right, you're trying to expand the market. Where's Denhay in 10 years? How do you see this progressing?
Great question. I don't know. I want to I really want to be out there with into the food service market more with the bacon, and I think with retail, we're still there. People still love bacon. People want bacon, and I don't even know what the retail world is going to look like. I think it'll be very interesting with sort of the changes with sort of online deliveries, with Ocado and Marks and Spencer's changing and all of that, and Waitrose. That's quite an interesting one. So, we don't know what that side of the market will look like. I think we've just got to continue making really good bacon. And if I can just make a bit more of it, that'd be great.
Yeah, okay. Do you think there's an opportunity that it becomes a brand where it's specified at the hospitality side, I suppose, on menus? In the same, Chalkstream Trouts was another one. People that I interviewed, and they trademarked the name Chalkstream as the stream where the trout comes from. So rather than just being trout, it's Chalkstream trout. And their preference is if you're using it on the menu. I don't know if it's preference or insisted. I don't know if they can insist, but it's it's always Chalkstream trout rather than just trout. I wonder if it can be that Denhay sort of signal of quality, whether the consumer will pay a little bit more.
I'd love to do
knowing
that.
It's Denhay.
Yeah, and I'd like I really am keen that any of our customers say that they say that it's Denhay bacon. So, and I know a couple of hotels, Burr Island. Do you know Burr Island? Yeah. So they've been buying Denhay bacon for years. So they put Denhay all over the menu, which is great. And I'm keen. I'd love to support that.
It's on our menu.
Excellent.
Come down for a sandwich on the seafront.
There,
we specify because whenever we can, we try and specify just from we always, the reason this podcast is called The Humans of Hospitality is the industry is about human beings. We always say we buy from people, not brands. So anything we buy, our eggs, we always like to buy from people. And sometimes it may be, big produced stuff, some of the wine and stuff, but we still ideally want to know who is the human being behind this product, who's the person behind the vineyard. So we try and specify as much as possible, and I think it's nice.
But that's why you do it, isn't it? That's why you spend a bit more to give that, so that your consumers, know where that product's coming from and have confidence in it rather than just bacon.
Yes.
I think
that needs to be the thing. Is focus, and maybe you do. haven't been on your website. I don't think I probably did actually when we first looked you up. But I guess it has to be around that provenance, around that story, around that welfare, around the production, and then people will be motivated if they're paying that extra cash to put Denhay and the justification for it. So I think you're in a really strong and good position. I hope you are.
Great.
Well, out of everything you do then, so you've been involved on the farm since you were born, fundamentally, going back to those days of sitting at the dinner table and vat packing bacon to now getting to chat to Wallies like me. What's the bit that still gets you kind of motivated and excited? And when you get up in the morning and you think that I'm doing this today, what is it that excites you?
I love going out and trying to sell our bacon because I'm so passionate about it. I know it's the best product. I do try a lot of bacons. I try a lot of competitors' bacons.
Not more than 70 grams a day, I hope.
Not more than 70. Well, I don't know. When I'm doing a show, there's probably a chance I'll end up eating a whole pack, but only once a week. I think I do trade shows, but I also do quite a few consumer shows. So just seeing people's reaction. A lot of people are like, oh, don't eat bacon. I'll just try it. They're like, oh God, that's what bacon used to taste like. And that is what people still say. That is what bacon used to taste like. It's like, we've been making it for over 25 years. Exactly the same way. It's always there. And so getting that reaction from people is just the thing that keeps you going. Thinking, people love this product. And then, the consumer shows are interesting. I do it really as a brand awareness, getting out, getting people to try it. And we started doing the BBC Countryfile Live, which was at Blenheim Palace for a couple of years, and it's at Windsor Great Park this year. And it's a great one because it's really bang on the market of people who are interested in food and they want to try a really good product, and it works for us. Getting people to carry around 4 packs of bacon all day when it's like 30-degree heat was a challenge 2 years ago. But I gave out a lot of vouchers and people repeat purchase, which is the key. They went out and got in Waitrose.
Nice. Well, I like to think, and the more I go out and talk to people at all kind of genres, I suppose, within food and drink industry and farming and all that kind of stuff, I really, I don't know, it's a bit like you buy a yellow car and all you see is yellow cars, but I really hope and believe that that we're on the cusp of a kind of a change of people doing exactly what you need, which is pay a little bit more and eat a little bit less. So good luck and thanks for staying strong to your niche and not just compromising and trying to join that sort of race to the bottom commodity price-led market. I'm convinced that hang on in there and it will be good. And like you say, you already sell loads. I think to most people you'd be the kind of epitome of success anyway, in the fact you're supplying these kind of the premium end of the supermarkets and some great restaurants like mine. Where should people go to find out more? Are you active on social media or is it just
active. So we've got Facebook, Twitter, Instagram is Denhay Bacon, and then Facebook and Twitter is just Denhay, and then the website is denhay.co.uk.
Amazing. So DENHAY, and I will put links through from our website as well, so people can go to humansofhospitality.co.uk. They can see the show links. There'll be a lovely photo of you and I having this conversation in just a few seconds' time, and we'll put all the details on there. But thank you so much for spending the time to have the conversation.
Really good. Really
hugely appreciated.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to this week's podcast, and remember that on the website humansofhospitality.co.uk every week we put on some show notes and some links through to the various websites or social media that are mentioned, and we also do a nice little breakdown of that week's conversations into specific topics, so you can jump through the podcast and just listen to some of the highlights if you wish. If you've not done so already, if you could leave us a review on iTunes or one of the other podcast players of your choice, that would be hugely appreciated. Thank you so much, and we'll be out with another episode next Monday.